Hello there, my gorgeous friends on the internet. I just choked on my drink, so if I'm crying, it's not because Astro. Okay, so I have a really fun episode for you guys today. We're going to be building out a fun project in Astro. And if you haven't touched Astro before, don't worry. If you don't know Astro, you're going to know Astro by the end of this episode. I'll try to get it done in like an hour or so you can go about your day. But yeah, let's look at it. What's it all about? So this is what we're going to be building out, right? We have this cool little page here and we have animations going as well. And then if we open up, right, we can navigate over to our contact. We can go back home. It's all optimized as well for mobile. And yeah, it's just a super simple project that I put together just so I can kind of give you show you guys how Astro really works. So you'd be thinking, why use this and not something like React or Next or Nuxt or any of the other 10 bajillion frameworks out there? Well, you'd use Astro when you're mainly building out sites that are not dynamic. So you can think of a blog, a personal website. So statically generated content is a great contender for Astro because by default, Astro ships 0 JavaScript. So if we head over here, as you can see, that's why it's so darn quick, because there's no JavaScript blocking any of your page loading up. So the good thing about it is that you can also take it to the next level. So if you do have some JavaScript, you can just add a script tag if you want to use a framework with it. So you can imagine like this website, for example, right? I can render this page out here as static. The image is as static. This whole section is as static. But I could also have loads of interactivity in a small section of my page. So for example, here, the nav, I opted in to just use a simple React component. And that's something that's really amazing with Astro. So you could have static content, and then you can create these islands using a framework that you prefer. So if I want to pop in solid here just for the nav component, I can do that. All right, so it gives you that flexibility, which is fantastic. But it also gives you a couple of tools. Like if I want to fetch data, for example, from like a CMS, you can do that without actually shipping any JavaScript as well. So you can pre-render it and then just ship straight HTML to the browser. All right, so enough talk. Let's actually show off what's going on. Also, please drop a like and a subscribe because it really helps. Honestly, it really does, and it just lets me do more content. Okay, so let's see our project here. So this is the default install here, and you're just gonna have a pages in your source that's gonna have an index.astro. All right, and I just added a H1 in here saying hello there. So if I run this and I open it up here, you're gonna see it right there. Okay, so by default, you can just create a file called index.astro, add your HTML in there, and that's it. And if I wanna make another page, I'll just make another one called, let's say, about.astro, like that, cool? And I'll just say about page here. Now, if I wanna go there, I can just add a href and say about like that. And that's already hooked up, so I can just easily, let me add something here, go to about, save, and click, and boom, I'm on the about page. So you have routing set up for you automatically, which is fantastic. And again, these Astro components, I just want to emphasize this, are going to ship 0 JavaScript, which is fantastic. Now, again, the cool bit is I can go here and let's say I want to let's make a components folder here, components. I can come here and make like a nav.tsx, which is a React component. So what we can do is head to Astro and add this integration now. So I'll go here and get started, and you should be able to search Astro. Here we go. You need to run this command, npx astro add react. All right, so I did this beforehand, but you can do it as well. Just install this. And you can also do it for Tailwind as well for styling. So npx astro add Tailwind. All right, same command. Perfect. So after we got that installed, look, I can just do export default function nav here, and I can return a nav that has like a logo in it. All right, so a React component, And now here in my Astro, how can I import it if I'm not shipping any JavaScript, right? Well, what we can do is add this front matter at the top here. So if you add these 3 lines like that and say import nav from components, what this is going to do is essentially run only once. It's going to run this JavaScript once at build time. All right. So when you're actually running npm run build, it's going to run this in the background. It's going to import it, turn it into static HTML, and it's going to serve it to the browser. So since this function here, this nav function, doesn't have any JavaScript logic necessarily to it, the compiler is going to take this code and just turn it into this essentially, right? And then add it in here. So essentially what you can do is just create all your styling. If you prefer React, you can create all your markup like this. If you want to go in a simpler route, you can just use A tags and H1s normally and work with classes rather than class names. So you can do anything you want. Again, you can do solid, you know the drill. Okay, cool. So that's how it works. So now I should just be able to add in my nav here like that and hit save. And you're gonna see that we have our logo. Perfect. So that's perfect. We're gonna keep this nav here. I'm just gonna get rid of it for now. Let's talk about layouts. How do I add like a navigation and like a header to each, or like a footer to each of these pages? What we can do is in the source directory, you can create a new folder called layouts like that. And I'm gonna call this, let's call this main layout dot astro. Okay. I'm just gonna copy some things over here because it's just normal HTML that's quite boring to look at. So I'll just pop this in here for you to see. So we just have HTML, right, with some header tags, and we have a meta here with the title, which we don't have yet. So I'll just get rid of that, and I'll get rid of this too. All right, so just like a basic structure here for us to get started in. Okay, cool. So what we can do here is I'll add a main tag and I'll add this slot. Now, what is this slot? This slot basically represents all the different pages to be rendered here. So basically, if I import this main layout and wrap it around my index.astro, it's essentially going to render out the content in between, kind of like children in React. Okay, so what we can do is head here and import, what's it called? Main layout. Cool, so look at that. I basically wrapped our main page here with the main layout. So if I head over to main layout here, and I'll just go to the top here and just say woo and hit save, you're gonna see that pops up there. Perfect, so you can see it works. But rather than doing woo here, what we can do is actually import the nav, because our nav is going to be used across all the pages. So again, you can do the 3 lines and say import nav from the components right here. Cool, there we go. So that's a good step to get going. Perfect. As you can see, we have the logo right up there at the top. Now, what else can you do here? Again, remember it's on build time, so you cannot do const counter equals 0. And if I add it here, counter, that's gonna work. As you can see, hello is 0, but it's always gonna stay 0. There's no way for me to increment this. Again, it only runs once. However, if I do want to increment something or use any dynamic content, I can add a script tag down here and, you know, run some code like that. That's gonna work just fine. Anyway, let's get rid of this. Let's actually start building something out here. Oh, one more thing I want to say is props. That's probably quite important. What if I want to pass something down here? Yeah, you can do that same as in like React, really. It's nothing too crazy. So for example, what if I, in this index, right? What if I want to pass down the title to it in the header? Because I don't have a title here yet. So what I can say is meta here, like that. Oops. Let's close that up like that. And I can say title. And what I can do here is in my index, I can just pass it down right here. Title equals digital artist and hit save, all right? And I have access to it up here at the top again in the front matter. I can say const title, I can extract it, equals astro.props. All right, that's where you get all your props from, astro.props. If we console log this out, title, you're gonna see it pop up right there in the terminal. Again, this is running in the terminal and not in the browser because we're not adding any JavaScript to the browser. Okay, cool, so it's there, so I can just say curly bracket, oops. Oh, what is going on with you? Okay, I can just say curly brackets and title and hit save. Perfect, lovely. All right, so that's all sorted. Let's build out our nav first. That's gonna be quite fun. So I also am gonna add some pictures here, which is gonna be on the GitHub. So if you wanna get it, go on and get. Okay. So I'm gonna import all of them here at the top. So let's do nav. Where's my nav? Nav. Here we go. Cool. So let's import. I'll import the avatar from the public folder, and you don't need to do .. / all that sort of shite. You can just do avatar.png. They really cared about the developer experience. We could do. Now I said I'm not gonna. This is just an example. I props wouldn't add frame or motion and all this jazz just for the nav here for some animations, but I'll add it just so you can see it. You can do this if you want. Motion from framer motion, and I need to install this as well. There we go. And I'll also import useState because we're gonna be doing a couple of things with like toggling on and off, right? We're gonna have like a hamburger icon. If I show you here, right? If I go down here, click, all right? So all of that sort of jazz is framer motion. Cool. Let's install it. Oh, you can also keep this running as well. So I can do npm run dev. This is really cool about Astro. I can have this running in the background whilst I install other packages. npm install framer motion. And it's still gonna work here and it's not gonna crash or fall down, as you can see. How awesome is that? Okay, cool. Let's start styling stuff up. Boop, boop. Put that there, close that up. Let's go. Okay. So let's add a const toggled and a set toggled here and set that to useState, and by default is gonna be false. Cool. I'm gonna have a couple of things up here. Let me just show you. Localhost 3000 if we head here. So we're gonna have like an avatar picture, we're gonna have the title with the line, and then we're gonna have the hamburger menu popping up here. Okay, so let's get started with that. First, I'm gonna come here and add a class, and I'm gonna position this relative because we are gonna be positioning the line absolute. So we'll add that, we'll add some margin mx8 just for a bit of spacing. Oof, class name, sorry. There we go. We're gonna add a margin bottom of like 24 just to separate it a little bit. And let's keep it like that for now. And then in here, we're gonna have an SVG, just like that. And this is gonna have a couple of things. I can self-close this actually. Just add a width of like 250 to it. Let's do a height of 4. Just a little line here. And the view box, I can say 00254, if that's correct. Do you need to add this? I'm not even sure. See, I need to look it up. If you still require this XMLNS. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And then fill is gonna be none because it's only gonna be a stroke. Cool. And then we're gonna have a path here. So in this SVG, actually, see, I should have just did that. Let's switch it to that again, because in here, we're gonna have a path. Like that. This can be self-closing. And now the D is gonna dictate not what you think it's gonna dictate. It's gonna dictate where the line is gonna be drawn. So just follow along with me. We're gonna do M2 and we're gonna say 2L4281. I think we can just say 2 here, and that should be fine. All right, so that's the D. Then we have a stroke. Fuck's sake. And the heel will say 282828. So that's the color, and there it is. Boom, at the top right there. Cool. Can you see it? No? You'll see it soon then. And then we can do a stroke line cap as well, and we can make it round. There we go. That's just gonna make the ends not look, you know, squarish. There we go. Can you see that? Cool. Perfect. All right. So we got all of that sorted out. Stroke width, we can also add 2 here just to thicken it up a little bit. Perfect. So now that we have that, we're gonna be able to move it and position it any way we want. Okay, cool. Next up, let's go down here and we're gonna create a div. And this is just gonna hold the image of the avatar that we imported. And we can say profile picture of, wow. There we go, lovely. Perfect, and then here we're gonna make the title. So let's go down here, we'll say h1. And this is gonna have an A tag as well. That's gonna go to slash, and we're gonna say, wow. Perfect. Let's add some styling to it as well. Class name. We're gonna say text large and font bold. Perfect. All right, so we have our line and we have our profile picture. Now what I'm gonna do is let's set up a hamburger, shall we? So what we can do, let's go down here at the bottom. I'm gonna say mode, not motion div yet. I'll just say div. Yeah, we're gonna have a span in here. We're gonna have 3 spans actually. Class, name, and I'm gonna call this line 1. I'll add this because we are gonna be doing some, actually, I don't think we need that. Let's just say block, and we'll add a small height to it of like 0.5, and the width is gonna be 8, and the background's gonna be black. There it is, there's our line. So we can copy this 2 more times and essentially create a wee hamburger. We can make it fancier. You just say 6 at 4 and boom, you have a really fancy hamburger. And then here you can just add a class name if you want to separate those lines. And you can do space, what is it? Space Y2. That's a bit too far apart. 1. That looks good. Perfect. There we go. So we have our lines all set up and ready to go. Lovely. Okay, so now what we can do is head back to the top because we're gonna start displaying this flex and all that good jazz. So display flex. Perfect. Let me just add a class name of absolute to this as well. So there we go, because it's not part of our main shtick here. We'll do bottom 0. And left is gonna be half of that, and then I can minus translate x half of that back, so it's centered. All right, so this is essentially left 0, bottom 0. Sorry, what is it? Bottom 0, left 50%, and then you do transform translate minus 50% and 0%, right? So that's it. We can do a justify between here to spread it apart like that. That's perfect. We can do item center to drop everything in the center. And then we can add a bit of padding to the top, like py of 12. We can do, actually, let's do padding top of 12 and padding bottom of 6. Because I don't want to make that line too far apart from that. Cool, and then we can do a font of medium as well. That's perfect. And finally, we can do a medium screens. We can start increasing the margin. So I'm gonna do 16, and on large screens, we can do 32. Okay, so now if I spread this and boop, see, it just adds more margin. And you can add, of course, as much as you want to that. But there we go. So we got everything kind of its own position, which is fantastic. Let's start working maybe on the burger. Let's do the burger. So here's what we're gonna do. Let's go down here. There we go. Perfect. The first thing I want to do is say on click. I basically want to toggle the button, right? So I can say set toggled here from the state. And what I can do is say previous toggle equal is an arrow function. And I just can pass in the opposite of the toggle. So in this case, okay, I made that sound too complicated for what it is. It's just a simple switch on and off switch. So we have a state, right? It's false, and then down here you're getting the previous latest version of the state. In this case it's false, and you're saying I want the opposite of that. So it's gonna flip it from false to true. Cool. And then here we can add other stuff. So I'm gonna do cursor pointer, all right? So it looks clickable. Perfect. Do I need anything else? Props not. Oh, I can say like if XL hidden, right? So if I start making this bigger, yeah, boof, it just goes away, right? Because we don't need the hamburger on bigger screens like that. Perfect. Okay, so we added the burger here, but if you use XL hidden, it can get a bit quite tricky because yeah, if I go to a bigger size here, right, it disappears and it comes back when it's small. It gets tricky when you have the actual links in here. That's gonna work fine. You could do like, hey, when I'm on XL, add the links in, right? But the thing is, I still want the links to not be hidden, right? On mobile, because when I click this, I want them to pop up right here. So it gets a bit tricky if you're doing stuff with XL hidden here. So what I think it's a better approach, to be honest, rather than switching the class here, is to have like a media query check that's gonna, it's like a piece of state, right? It's gonna be much easier to control everything with that. So the easiest way to do that is to use something like use media query. So we can have a look at that. Okay, perfect. You could literally just copy this over if you want, to be honest, because we don't really need anything else. So yeah, let's copy this code over from here, and I'm just gonna go here and I'll make a new folder called util, like that. All right, and make a new file here. I'll call this usemediaquery.tsx. Perfect, let's paste that in there, and that should be it. Okay, once you add that, we can just import it here in our nav, import use media query, like that. And I can say const matches down here and set that equal to use media query. And here I can just pass it in, I think it's a string of, what is it, min width of 1080 pixels. So that would be XL, right? That's what Tailwind has as XL. Let's double check this and make sure it's correct. It says use media query. Okay. Oh, and then you need another pair of parentheses in here, like that. Cool, and hit save. Let's also console log the matches here. Console log matches. Hit save. Cool, we can close all of that up. And now if we check our inspect, head over to your console and we don't have anything. Strange, why not? Well, remember I told you at the beginning that, let's take a sip, let's have a break. I told you at the beginning that Astro by default is gonna load 0 JavaScript. So that applies to these islands as well. So if you're working in React or Svelte, by default, when you create the page and your function and whatnot, it's still gonna just try to render out static content for you. So if you wanna see the interactivity and the JavaScript that you actually written, whether that's state or use effects or any of that, what you need to make sure is to go back to where you're rendering out that component. So in this case, it's nav here, right? And now here you can add a client, idle, load, media, only, visible. You have all these fantastic options. We're just gonna say load for now. So it's just gonna load up ASAP when all the DOM content is loaded up. But you have stuff like client visible as well, which is fantastic. It's only gonna serve up the HTML, and when you scroll in view, only then it's gonna start hydrating that component. So that's fantastic. Imagine you have a longer page and you have lots of JavaScript going on down there, but you don't want to run it because the user hasn't even seen it. So you add client visible, and then when the user scrolls down, Astro is automatically going to add like an intersection observer to see where you're on the page. And once you hit it, it's going to start adding the JavaScript in. So I just say loaded now. And if we look in our inspect, go to console and look at that, it says true. So now if I change the size of this and I get down to not true, basically when it gets really, really big, but I cannot stretch this out any longer, it's going to turn to false. We can try that. Let's go here, hit save, and I can, let's do the title here, right? I can say matches and wrap this around like that. All right, so we can see it, and boom, it's gone and it's back. Perfect. So we can use this rather than using Excel hidden here. So let's delete that, and here we can say matches and wrap that around like that and hit save. Perfect. So same functionality. Why is that not working? Let's see. I should do 1280 there. It was 128 pixels. There we go. So boom. But I want the opposite of it, right? So if there's no matches, then render out the hamburger, and when we go bigger, don't. Perfect. So that's nice. So now we can actually start adding our nav links. Let's see where we should do that. So nav, and then we'll just create a div right here. That's fine, div, and we'll say an anchor tag that's gonna take us back to home. Let's do 2 more, and this is gonna take us to services maybe. Oops. And then finally we can do a contact. All right, home, services, and contact. Save. Perfect. Now what I can do is just add a wee gap in between these. So I can say class name flex and gap of 12. That's hard to see how this is gonna look because I don't want to render it out on mobile. So what we can do is say matches and then render that out like that. So it's not gonna be rendered out, but when we go on bigger screen, poof, it's right there. Fantastic. Okay, awesome. So now here we have the checks, right? Check if we are on mobile or not. Okay, so that's our like desktop view, and then this is our mobile view. But I also want to have, like, when I click on this again, I want to pop that out. So what I can do is, let's just copy this over. This will just make it super simple if I do it like this. I'll paste it on the bottom here like that. And this is going to be its own thing. So I'm just going to say here, if it's toggled, then display this. Only if it's toggled. Okay, perfect. So we are here, and then when I click on this, as you can see, there it is. But we're going to style this up totally differently. So we're going to say this is going to be position like fixed. The background is going to be white. Let's keep this open actually. There we go. And then bottom is going to be 0, left 0. Width is full, height is screen. All right, so it's going to cover everything up like that. Perfect. And here we can just move these around any way we want. I could drop this in its own div actually, so we can center it as well. So there we go. Hate screen, and here we can do item center and justify center. And that's gonna just put everything in the middle for us. It didn't. No, why not? Because this needs a height of screen. Yeah, that should work. Position fix. Maybe I don't have display flex. Yeah, I didn't have display flex. Cool. Yeah, that worked fine. And then I can do the same for here. So I can say class of name of flex, and flex call we can do, and we can also do a gap of like 12. Oof, there we go. Maybe 24. increase the sucker a little bit. Perfect. And maybe a font of large, text large. And hit save. And there we go, cool. That looks good. Now we cannot see our hamburger because it's being covered up. So what we can do is just add a bigger Z index to that. So if we go here, we can say Z50, just so it's always on top there. Perfect. All right, so there we go. And when we go here, right, if we get to this size, we can just get rid of it, to be honest. So we can say matches here as well. And hit save. Okay, pop, open that up. Sorry, opposite of matches. There we go. Click. All right, so that's opened up. And if we get to a bigger screen, it's just gonna do that, see? Perfect. So now it doesn't break anymore. Lovely. All right, so we got that going. That's perfect. Let's see, what else do we need to do? We need to create an animation for this. So we could use just CSS if you want to keep the JavaScript down. I'll use frame or motion just because it's a bit more fun. And yeah, it's just an example video anyway, so who cares? Okay, let's do the background first. So when we click on this, it's gonna fade in nicely. So let's go here. We'll turn this into a motion div. Cool, and then here we can say animate. We can set that equal to, and here we can just pass in the values that we want it to animate to. So opacity 1, and the position is gonna be x0. And the initial position, so when it's hidden and then wants to animate in, here's where you can define that. So I can say opacity 0, and it's gonna start off a bit off screen, like 25 pixels to the right. So when it animates in, you're gonna have a really cool effect. Let's see. Motion div. Okay, so something's not working yet. Let's have a look. Motion imported from there. Animate initial. Oh, there we go. So now when I click on this, look at that. It fades in really nicely. That looks really cool. Nice. Okay, now that we have that, what else I'm gonna do is let's do these lines. So we'll go here and turn these into a motion span. And we can do that for all of them down here. Perfect. So I just want to move the lines up and down. So the first one here is we can do animate. And I can also say here, let's say rotate Z. And I can say, hey, if it's toggled, then do 45, but if it's not toggled, then keep it at 0. So I can also specify that. And I'm also gonna move it down a little bit, so Y8, otherwise I'll do a 0. Okay, so when we click on it now, see that top line? It goes down a bit as well, besides rotating. Cool. So I'm gonna do the same, but for the bottom one. So I'll just copy and paste that here. And I'll just do minus 45. So the other way, and minus 8. So it goes into an X. Now this also needs to be bigger as well because we changed the size of it. So what you can do is add a comma here and say width of 32, because that's the width that we set the... If we hover over here, you're gonna see the first, see it's 32 pixels. All right, so that's the initial, that's the final one, and the initial one is 16. So we need to change that to 16 actually. So 16 is the initial and 32 when it's animated. So we're gonna get this cool, is that correct? Is it 24? No, it's definitely 16 here for the initial. Okay, I found a simple fix. We can just do a bigger space Y here of 1.5. And if we have a look now, that's pretty close there. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Cool. So we got that going. Now, what I want to show you is that we can also animate these in individually. And the way you can do that, I'll just copy this here at the top, just because it's going to take a while to write out. I'll copy it up here for you to see. So what you can do is create a variant in frame or motion. So here it is. Look at this. We have a nav motion, and I just specified a visible property. So opacity is 1, and the hidden property is opacity 0. The only other thing that this has is a transition, and it just says before children and stagger children for 0.15 seconds. Now, what does that mean? It means when I click on this, this is gonna fade in and animate in, and after it fully animates, it's gonna start staggering and animating the children in, which is this one down here. So I'm just adding opacity visible from 0 to 1, and I'm also moving it on the X a little bit. Okay, so these two are here, and now I can just add them if we scroll down. Okay, now here's the cool part. I can go down here to this div here, and I can make it a motion div, and I can animate in by just adding the variants this time. So I can say motion, what did I call it? Let's go to the top, nav motion. All right, so I can just copy that and paste it in there. And now I can just say animate, and I can set that equal to visible. And I can say initial is invisible, or whatever we called it up here, hidden. Cool. So I can just pass those two down there, and that's it. Let's hit save, and now when we pop this open, as you can see, that's gonna fade in. Cool. And now for the actual anchor tags, I can change these to motion A, and motion A. Cool. And here our variant is gonna be the other one that we passed down, is item motion. So let's go down and pass it in. Item motion. Perfect. Now we can do this for all of them down here. All right, let's see if that works. Boom. So you're getting that cool pop-up going on. Nice. As if my camera just died mid-shoot. Oh my gosh. Okay, we are back. All right, so let's start making let's make another page. We have our nav going, that's perfect. Let's head over and create our first page. And this one, let's do a Astro file. So let's head over to pages. We'll go over to components and just add it in here. We're gonna say intro.astro. Perfect, and this is gonna be imported in our main page. So we'll head over here and say import intro like that. Perfect. Let's, rather than rendering this out, let's render out the intro right there. All right, let's see what's it complaining about. Okay, so let's start coding this out. So I'm gonna import paint from our public file. And this is just paint.png, and also the portrait picture. So we can say portrait from main portrait. Cool. Oops, that's not correct. It's main.portrait.jpg. Cool. And let's hit save. Oh, sorry, this needs to be imported, these two actually, in the intro up here. There we go. Cool. All right, so rather than having a hello here, we're just gonna replace this with a div. I'll add a class of relative here because we're gonna be moving that brush around left and right. Let's add some padding to the left and right. We'll do mx of 12. And let's add some content here. I'm gonna just copy this over here so you can see. It's just the H1 with some text on it. I added the span here as well, just to give it some font bold. Digital universe, wow, super cool. Okay, so mx of 12, we can add a flex call this, item center, we can do justify center as well. And I think that's fine for now on mobile version, and then we'll optimize it a bit later on. Okay, so after that, let's make more space here. We'll add a div below. Cool, and this is gonna have a class of relative as well, because here is where we're gonna drop our images. Cool. Yeah, let's add a paragraph. And I'll copy this over because it's quite long and it's going to take forever to type out. But make sure you have a paragraph here. You can do a lorem ipsum if you want. I just added a P6 on it and a text of main. You probably are not going to have that color. Sorry, the font size. We can just do a text of large. There we go. That looks fine. Cool. So we have that. And I also added an ID here. So animate P, all right, animate paragraph. So make sure you have that on as well. And the reason I added position relative here is because we're gonna go to our folder, and if we head over to our public, we can copy this fancy line over, which is gonna dynamically basically change its size based on how big this whole paragraph is. So you can just copy that and we can paste it right here above the P. Again, the reason I'm doing that is because we want it to be relative to this div here. So cool. Okay, so this SVG then is only going to require a class of absolute, height of full, width of full, and that's it. And we can do an overflow of visible as well. And I'll tell you when this is going to come in handy. Perfect. So we have the line there. Again, we need to like reposition it with JavaScript so it's responsive. But we got it. Perfect. Next up, what I want is these numbers here, right, that are going to animate in nicely. To get that going, it's going to be quite simple. We can just head to the bottom here. Let's say here. Create a new div. And we're gonna have another div here that has like art posts and the counter, right? So P, and I can say 85 for the art posts. And I'll also add a wee class here as well. So I'll just make this bigger, text XL with a font of bold, like that. That looks cool. And I'll also add a small width to them. Like 32. The reason why I'm adding this is because when this is going to increment and it's going to change from a single digit number to a double or a triple, you're going to get jankiness between the pages. They're all going to go like this. And it's never going to stop. So it's a whiff. Yeah, it took me half an hour to realize it, but it is what it is. Okay, so now we can just duplicate this 2 more times. 1, 2, and save. Perfect. And then if you know anything about flex, then we can add it here. Justify center. PT12 for some space. Text center so it doesn't look awkward. And that's it. Is that it? Should I add something else? Nah, that's fine. Perfect. Let's change, let's say here, YouTube. She's ballin'. She has a 1.2 mil subs. There we go, and then we can do reviews maybe? And this can be 50 reviews. Cool. I think that's it. I don't think I'm gonna add anything else in here. Okay, cool. And then we need the image as well. So we can go down here again, div, and then we can add a class of relative again. And then in here, I'll just get the image up and going. I'll add a portrait is what we called it. Portrait. There we go. Cool. Nice. And the image, I'm just gonna add a class of height of full to it. That's fine. I'm happy with that, to be honest. And then we are also gonna have that paint effect. So let's go down here. I'll just say div class with absolute on it. And in here, I'm gonna have an image with the source of paint. And it's right there, but I want to put it on top, so I can just say bottom 0, right 0. I think this is a bit taller than it usually is, so if you want to move it around, you can do translate Y, and we can do like a quarter of that maybe. There we go. That's perfect. All right, I'm happy with that. One last thing, I added a small line here at the end, just at the bottom. You can add a div. I just added a width of full and the background of black, just like a separation line. I guess we could make this a bit shorter, like 4 pixels. Sorry, height of 4, 16 pixels, like that. All right, I'm quite happy with that, to be honest. Yeah, I don't think I want anything else. Maybe a little gap here. That could look quite good. Gap of 12. Oh crap. We could do on XL, we could add like a gap of 16, that's fine. So when we get bigger, boop, they spread a bit more apart. Perfect, that's fine. We could do, yeah, just on this, you could add like a margin of bottom of like 12. There you go, and then you just push it down a bit. And that's perfect. There we go. So again, you don't need React necessarily. Like, this is all static, right? So why would I bother with React? The only thing I need here, again, is just animating these numbers up, right? But would I really want to just import React just for that? Not really. But if you do import React, it's fine, because it's like once you import it, that's it. If you're using it on different components, it's not going to load up extra anything. So it loads it up once and caches it, and you'll be fine anyway. But it's just, again, a simple incrementing number here, so I'm not going to switch it over now. So yeah, we can do that. Let's also make this path update correctly. So we can just go down here and do a script tag, and I can say function update path. What you guys thinking of those new glasses? The Apple glasses, by the way. Yeah, I don't know. I think the price is still a bit ridiculous, and I wish they would have showed up a bit more. Like, they acted like it was like innovating, right? But we had headsets for years and years now, and I don't know. I'm just wondering how long is that gonna take till it collects dust, you know? You're gonna put it up on your head to watch a movie. What if you want to watch a movie with your kids or your partner, right? You need 2 glasses. Let's keep that in mind. NMP. And then we'll also get the path. So I'm getting the paragraph here and then the line. So let's do document.query selector. There we go. And we'll get the border. I don't know, it's just like, oh, are we gonna become people that are just gonna have damn headsets on our head and our actual face is not even our face, it's just like an image generated by AI? You know, I don't know. Fuck's sake, where are we going with this? Okay, there we go. Oh, if you want to also add like TypeScript for this, you can say this is a HTML element, and you can say that this is an SVG path element. Cool. There we go. If you want to be fancy. And I'll just say here if text main exists and then path exists as well, then what I want to do is I can set the attribute of this path. So I can modify it by, you know, remember the D? We're going to use the D again to do it. Okay, so I can say M, which basically says like where should the starting point be. So I'm just going to say 0, 0 here. Perfect. And then I'm gonna say V, and this is gonna be the vertical line all the way down. So I'm gonna say the V is gonna be the size of text main offset height. And hit save. And well, that should work already. Well, maybe I should run the function, right? So how, let's run the function. So I'm gonna say window.add event listener, and I'm gonna say on DOM, content loaded, let's update the path. Cool. Refresh, nothing's happening. I'm gonna need to do this on resize as well, so I'll just add that now in and hit save. Okay, cool. Hello? Why are you not animating my line? Maybe I just didn't write this correctly, right? I'm not grabbing the elements. So let's see, NMP, search. There we go, it's on the paragraph, so that's good. And then border path. Search. Oh, there's no border path class. So let's head over to our path here. ID of border path. And hit save. Oh, look at that. There we go. That is exactly what I wanted. Lovely. So we got a line going there. So that's a good start. And then here, what we can do after this is I can say, I want to draw the horizontal line this way, right? So H for that. And $, we're going to say text main dot offset width. And there we go. And the last thing I can do is draw a line downwards as well. So we can say small v for that. Oops. Small v $, text main dot offset height again. But I'm gonna make it shorter, so I'm gonna do like half of that. There we go. Now there's still something wrong here because it looks like it's not getting the full height of this. I wonder if I added accidentally like another paragraph or something. I think the SVG I copied over was messed up, so I'll just paste in the good one here. It's the same, I'm not sure why it messed up, but there we go, this is the right one. And there we go, that works fine. It's the same class and everything. I think it was just messed up here a little bit. But there we go, we have a nice line going from this area all the way there, and it should just resize based on the text. Awesome, so that's fantastic. And again, I just exported this from Figma. I just drew the lines and that's it. All right, so that's perfect. Lovely. So how can we animate these things in then? Well, let's see. To be honest, loads of this can just be done with CSS. So for this one, I can just do a style and I can grab, let me change my keyboard here. We'll change this to English and do border. Why am I still getting a pound sign? There we go. Come on, give it to me. Border bath. Bath. I'll take a bath tonight. We'll say draw, 1 second forwards. And we'll say 1 second ease out. Cool. Okay. And then down here, I can just add some keyframes. And I can say draw. And what I'm doing here is just essentially animating the stroke dash offset. All right, if you set that to 0, and then if you get the length of this line, you can just animate it in. But the only way you can get that line in is through JavaScript. So we can just go down here, const path length. We can just get this quickly, path dot get total length. All right, that's how you get it. Perfect. Why does this not work? It's because I added it into a function. So let's just pop it in there like that. Cool. And then here I can just do path.style.stroke dash array. And I can set that equal to path length like that. Now if this is giving you an error, it's because it wants a string, I believe. And this is a number. So we can just do a toString here. And I can do the same for the stroke dash offset as well. So stroke dash offset, that's it. And boom, there you go. You got your line animating in already. Perfect. Ooh, that looks fancy. Cool. I like that. And finally, we can do a function to increment that counter. So let's go down here. I'll say function increment counter. Set that equal to I'm gonna do it to 3 of these, so maybe we'll customize this a bit. I'll have a selector in here. Let's do a string for this. The current, it's gonna be a number, so we can do like from 0 to the target, which will be like 85 or 50. So that's gonna be a number as well. I'll do a duration as well, so we can customize that. I'll put a number in there. And I'll add a letter here if we want to do like M or plus symbol or anything like that. I'll just add a letter and call it string. Cool. And then in here, what we can do is say let counter. Can set that equal to document get elements by, let's do by ID. and I'll just pass in the selector there. And I can do a step time as well, so how fast would it increment up? I can do a math.abs here and just floor it down, so we're pushing it down to a full value, a full integer, and I'll say duration divided by target. All right, and I say if the current is smaller than target and counter, then what we want to do, we want to make it go brrr. I want to take the current and plus it, and the counter inner text, right? We need to update it. We're not in React land anymore, so we have to do everything imperatively. We can do current, and this needs to go to string as well, plus letter, like that. All right, so you just put the current in, and then if it has a letter, add a letter to it. If it doesn't, then it's gonna error out because we don't have a default setup. If nothing's passed in as a parameter, we can just say nothing there, like that. Perfect. And then finally, I just do a we set timeout here. And I'll just run an arrow function in here and say increment counter, and I'll pass in the selector, the current, the target, duration, and what's it called? Letter, like that. All right, perfect, because we want to run this a couple of times. Nice, and that's essentially everything. So I can just go down here and say increment now. I can say increment counter. I can pass it in, let's say the arts counter. Did I name these? I don't think I did. Let's have a look. Boop, 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 where is it? Here we go. Okay, so we can just add like an ID to these. Where do we need to add it? To the p tag, because that's the thing that we're incrementing, right? So ID, art counter, we can do a ID of YouTube counter, and finally an ID of reviews, right? Save. Reviews counter. Save. Perfect. So my little function, I can say art counter. I want it to start from, as you can see, we got the message here popping up. The number, the target's gonna be 85 for this. The duration, let's put it to 1000 milliseconds. And letters, we don't have letters. Oh, look at that. Do I want to slow it down? 2000. There you go. You can do 5000. Hey, that doesn't slow it down. Step time, step time. Did I not add the step time? Oh, here, for the timeout, right? I need the step time for it. So after this whole shebang, we can say, comma, step time. There we go. There we go. That works now. Perfect. Let's change this back to 1000. Poof. And now I can just copy paste this. I can do a YouTube counter. I can do a reviews counter. Your mama counter, anything. Okay, I'll just update this to, this should go to 328 now, let's say, or like 320,000. And this should go to 250. There you go. Now, see, I added the letter here, so if I want to go, I can just add K here, like as in thousands. And there you go. Poof. Super cool. And I think that's it for this page, actually. So we're going to keep it like that. Now, what if I want to load up, again, some sort of content? Maybe I have a CMS or a blog post or something like that. Well, what you can do is, I'll just show you this. I'll have a fetch API here. You can just go to your index here, and you can do a fetch right here. So you can say cons data equals await fetch. Let's say we fetch the placeholders there. And that's it. You can do top level await as well. You don't even need async, which is super cool. Then you get your actual posts or whatever, and you can say await data.json. And there we go. And then you can loop over this, you can use this, and it's pretty much like React. There we go. Awesome. So if I want, I can do, is this an array? I don't think this is an array in this case. I think it's just an object. Yeah. If we get multiple posts, we could potentially do that. Let's see, how do we get multiple posts? Oh, just posts. Save, let's see. Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah, so you could essentially just go here and say something like posts.map over each post, and then you can output whatever you want to output. Okay, so that works. But in our case, I didn't set up like a whole a whole CMS for us. So I just have these pictures here that I imported from our public folder. So we can just make a new component for that. So let's head over here. Components, I'll add a new one. Let's call this gallery.astro, like that. That's perfect. All right, and here all I'll do is I'll just import those pictures. Perfect. And then it's all just gonna be about some styling really. So let's go down here. I'm gonna say div. Again, I'm gonna add a class of mx12, a h1 of, with a class of my of 24. There we go. And then in here, we'll say latest art pieces, like that. And now let's also import this into our main project here. Main page, sorry. Import gallery from /component/gallery. Pop that in, hit save, and there it is at the bottom. Perfect. Okay, we can do a text center here. Text of large, extra large. Perfect. And then right here below it. Shit. What am I doing? Move that up, there we go. Do another grid here, and this is where all the wonderful pictures are gonna go. So I'm gonna say image, and for the source here, we're gonna just pass it art1 with the alt of painting. There we go, and then here the position is gonna be v full, z of 10. I'm gonna do a transition all because we are gonna add a cool little effect to this. Transition all. And I'm gonna say group hover minus translate x3. Okay, and now what does that mean? I'll let you know in a sec. Basically, when we hover over this image, we can animate something else. Okay, that's kind of the idea behind it. So if I go down here and add a div, and I'll just add a class of absolute to this, a left of 0, top of 0, width of full, height of full, BG of black. Make sure it's left here of 0. There we go. So we have that, right? And then if I place this relative, we are gonna have a really cool effect. So I actually am gonna need to copy this and add it to its own div. So I'll do another div here and wrap the image and this black div box around it like that. So I can add a class of relative to this now. So it's right behind it now. Now check this out. This is cool. So I can just say group here like that and hit save. All right. So what that means, I can just say group hover translate. Actually, all I needed was it on this one, to be honest. I don't think I even need it on the top one. So let's get rid of that. It basically says, hey, when you're hovering over the div, then animate it here, right? Because technically you need to be over the element for it, like to actually hover over it for it to animate, but you can specify a group up here and then just say group hover. So it just does it regardless which element you're hovering over. So I did the same basically for the top one. I added some transition all to it and a group of hover. So now when we hover over it, we get that nice cool separation effect like that. And I essentially just use that on all of them. So I pretty much copied this group over twice, actually 4 times, 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and I just changed the numbers here like that. And boom, there we go, 1, 2, 3, 4. What's missing here? Okay, I have this twice, so we can get rid of that, and that's it. Cool. Okay, now we need to separate it up and style it up a little bit. So let's say grid calls 1 when it's small, and then a gap of 24, just so it's nicely spaced out. And MX is gonna be 48 on larger screens, and it's also, we're gonna switch to 2-column layout. So when we go up, poof, we have a nice 2-column layout like that. Again, you can use this for your blog posts, you can use it for anything that you want. I just added it like that, but again, I showed you can just do a fetch, and that's pretty much it. Now let's see how this looks on the bigger screen. So that's still a bit screwed up, and this is all like a one layout. So if we head over to the intro as well, let's head over here and do, let's see, intro. Cool. So we have relative, and at the end here, we can do XL, flex row, and we'll also increase the gap to something like 36. Okay. Well, that's not what I wanted. Why is it doing that? Oh, I see. I need another div here, because this text is just gonna keep growing. See, like this text is gonna keep stretching out, and out. And I don't want that. And I also don't want to add a flex of row to all of these items. So I'm just gonna wrap this all up. Now let me just see, how do I need to wrap this? Okay. So we're gonna go all the way down right before the image. So div, let's see, where is it? So right after this, right here, that's where we're gonna finish it off. All right, we're gonna separate the image basically from all this text. So now if we spread it, it should pop in like that. And that's what we're looking for. And this is what I mean that our text is just gonna keep stretching out, and out, which is not what we want. So what we can do here on this div is add a class of width full, but when we're on XL screens, we can do a width of like half of that, right? Or a quarter of that. Maybe half of that. There we go. Cool. There we go. So now that's all sorted out. Nice and responsive. Lovely. And yeah, that's kind of the whole idea behind it. Ooh, that's not working properly as well. Let's have a look at that quickly before we wrap this all up. Perfect. Let's go to our nav, and this one should be right here at the bottom. BG white. I think we just need a big Z index on it. C50. There we go. Cool. Well, not 50 because we need the X there to close it up, but there it is. Lovely. And again, feel free to fix this little issue here with the name not being centered. I'm just gonna stop it here because there's no point of just keep going around it. But yeah, that's it. That's kind of the idea behind Astro. Hope you enjoyed this little episode. I know it was like taking forever. But yeah, hope you got a good idea. Hope you're gonna try it and use it. Again, you can push this code up anywhere. So the way I like to think about this is I'm trying to work as less as possible and maintain as little as possible. And if I have a project that's quite dynamic, like React, where it's communicating with a server and I'm passing data back and forth, I'm running webhooks and stuff like that, yeah, it gets just harder and harder to maintain. Whereas this, I can just push it up anywhere. Netlify, sure. I can even run zero JavaScript and add forms to it with Netlify and stuff like that. Yeah, any platform that you want to do it, And once it's up on CDN, and then you don't need to worry. If CDN is down, then, well, everything is down. So, so anyway, that's gonna be it. Thank you so much for watching. Sorry if I felt a bit tired today. There's just so much going on in the last couple of weeks. But please drop a sub, please drop a like, and check out the courses on my page as well. I have one on React, on Next, on HTML, CSS, everything out there. So thank you for all the support, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.